My twin sister was diagnosed with something called sibling competition disorder. Whenever my grades beat hers, she stopped sleeping and took a razor to her arms. Dr. Prescott's treatment plan was absurd. Make me worse. My family threw themselves into it. Mom set my alarm back, watched me sprint out the door, and turned to Molly. Your sister won't make it in time now. My brother offered me a ride, then swore the car had died 5 minutes in. When I got out and ran for it, he was grinning at me in the mirror. My childhood friend held me like he was calming a toddler. So bomb, one test, you're smart. What is a gap year? Molly's scores climbed, and everyone agreed the plan was working. On the morning of the Kestrel Collegiate assessment, someone handed me a bottle of water. I hesitated. I drank it anyway. 10 minutes in, I ran out of the exam room with both hands on my stomach. They all turned to look at me, faces arranged into concern, eyes saying the plan had worked. That was the moment the last thing I still hoped for died. I only wondered what they'd do when they found out the one they destroyed was Molly. I came out of that bathroom wrung out. My legs shook. I braced a hand against the wall and dragged myself into the hallway. They closed in around me, all of them wearing the same borrowed concern. Mom looked guilty. Audrey, don't blame us. If Molly can't get into North Star or Eastboro because of you, she'll have another episode tonight. Be good. Let your sister have this. My brother didn't even bother pretending. Audrey, if you don't get into a good school, I'll take care of you. Colin Barrett, who'd lived next door since we were 5, tried to sound gentle. Exactly. Your grades are great. Sit out a year and retest. 18 years of work, and all of it came down to Molly Sutton's so-called illness. They'd tried every trick they could invent to make me fail. I had nothing left to say to any of them. I turned to go. Mom caught my arm. Molly isn't out yet. Wait for her with us. They didn't see my white lips or my hands pressed flat against the cramps tearing through my stomach. There was only ever room in them for Molly. The bell rang. Molly came out with her face crumpled. Audrey, you finished so early. You must have handed yours in ahead of time. I knew I could never beat you. Her eyes drifted to the big oak at the edge of the lot. Maybe I should just run into that tree and be done with it. At least then I won't humiliate myself when the scores come out. Mom pulled her in immediately. Sweetheart, what are you saying? Dylan laughed. Come on. Your sister isn't in your league. Who knows what Audrey ate this morning? She bolted 10 minutes after the test started. She was in there a solid hour. Molly studied their faces and asked carefully. You're not lying to me. Colin threw up a hand. I swear, we're not. You can't hand in a paper until the last 30 minutes. And she walked out after 10. That is a rules violation. They wouldn't even let her back in. I watched them hand Molly the wreckage of my future, like a party favor. I thought that part of me had died a long time ago. It still hurt. It took a long time for any of them to remember I was standing there. Molly, ask your sister yourself. Isn't that what happened? Under all those hopeful stares I answered. Yes, I didn't write a single word. Something bright moved across Molly's face. I'll get a 0 in language arts, I said. The rest won't matter now. So I'm not taking them. Audrey, are you serious? I nodded, slow and deliberate. I am. After the assessment ended, Molly hung off Mom's arm, delighted. Mom, Audrey skipped the rest of the tests, and I felt amazing in there. I might have gotten all Tev and Tay. I might be the top scorer in the country. Mom stroked her hair. Of course you are. Molly's the best. Audrey was never going to keep up with you. Tell me what you want as a present. Molly tilted her head and suddenly looked at me. If I did that well, you shouldn't get me anything. Give it to Audrey instead. Call it an early consolation prize. Molly always did this. Every sentence sounded generous, and every one of them was a foot on my neck. Dylan smiled and opened his banking app. Molly, you crushed it and you're still thinking about your sister. That deserves something. Audrey didn't even sit the exam, but Molly asked us to include her. So I'll send you both a little cash. How is that? Both our phones chimed at once. Dylan, $120,000. I love you so much. Molly shrieked, threw her arms around him and kissed his cheek. Audrey, hurry up and see what he sent you. Before I could reach for my phone, Colin took it out of my hand and opened the transfer. 1 cent. Molly turned to Dylan with theatrical outrage. That is so unfair. How could you give her that little? Dylan spread his hands. Don't blame me, sweetheart. I was perfectly fair. Molly scored a perfect 30. So 100 times that is 120,000. Audrey didn't take it at all. 1 cent was already generous. Molly nodded. Okay, that is actually fair. Audrey, you can't be mad at him. Your stomach's the one that let you down. I took my phone back from Colin without a word. Then I stood up to go. Whether I stayed or not, there was only one person in that room they were celebrating. Audrey, you're not upset that I did well, are you? Before I could answer, Mom, Dylan and Colin were all watching me like guards, terrified my next breath might upset Molly. No, I'm going to get your present. The second I walked into my room, I saw them sitting on my desk, the 3 things I treasured most. The North Star pen Colin gave me the day he promised he'd be waiting for me there. The brass fountain pen Dylan gave me when he told me I'd go as far as I wanted. The St. Jude medal Mom had blessed at church, back when she told me I'd graduate at the top of my class. I didn't want any of them anymore. The same way I no longer wanted the people who'd given them to me. I carried all 3 back to the living room. Molly, these are for you. Mom's face changed the moment she saw them. Audrey, isn't that the St. Jude medal I got you? I smiled at her. It is, Mom. I don't have money to buy Molly anything new, so all I can give her are the things I cared about most. Mom stared. Didn't I tell Dylan to give you spending money? Dylan rubbed the back of his neck. Molly's been unstable. I used it keeping her happy. Audrey doesn't spend anything anyway. Call it her contribution to Molly's treatment. The irony almost made me laugh out loud. Molly's grades were terrible. Her moods were a weather system, and every want she had became an emergency. I couldn't afford a practice workbook without earning the money myself. They never noticed how late I came home from shifts because every time I walked in, they were gathered around Molly. As far as any of them were concerned, I didn't really matter. Since Molly mattered that much, and since they believed every word out of her mouth, I decided to give them something magnificent. Mom, Molly said you should get me something to cheer me up, right? I don't need cheering up. I want you to give Molly something instead. From me. Mom smiled, warmed by how reasonable her older daughter was being. Tell me what it is. I'll pay for it. Let's throw Molly a party for her scores and invite everyone we know. Yes, absolutely. Molly did so well, we have to celebrate. They crowded around her, all talking over each other about the party. Colin shoved me aside without thinking about it. He just wanted the spot closest to her. I lost my footing and cracked my forehead on the corner of the coffee table. The sound it made was dull, and nobody heard it. A knot came up over my eyebrow right away. I didn't say anything. I got up quietly and let myself out. Telling them would have changed nothing. Besides, I still had tuition to earn. At the Silverline Karaoke Lounge, I changed into my uniform and started working the floor, selling bottle service room to room. Then I heard voices I knew. I opened the door, and Molly stared at me. Audrey? I stopped. Mom, Dylan, and Colin all turned at once. Mom took one look at the uniform, and her face went hard. Audrey, are you trying to ruin your life? I know you scored a 0 this year, but we agreed you were taking a gap year and retesting. You're smart. Is this what you want? Serving drinks for the rest of your life? Dylan frowned. Are you doing this on purpose? Colin grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the hallway. Come home. You start studying again tonight. Looking at the three of them, I almost laughed. They'd spent years trying to make me worse. Now that they thought it had worked, why were they so unhappy? For the next several days, they kept me in my room and watched me study. Their attention was rare, and it exhausted me. Mom, is my dress ready? Today's the most important day of my life. Mom came hurrying in with a garment box. Sweetheart, I had this made for you. $60,000. Dylan produced a velvet case like a magician. And this is from me. A pink diamond necklace. $500,000. Colin refused to be outdone. Look at mine. My mother took this antique tiara at auction. Over $10 million. Molly gathered it all up and dressed like a princess. The princess got into a town car and left for the Citrine Grand Hotel with her cord around her. They forgot me in the house. A while later, a message came through on my phone. Audrey, find your own way to the hotel. I didn't argue. It was an important day, and I'd been waiting a long time to watch it. By the time I reached the hotel on foot, my face was soaked and my shirt was stuck to my back. Mom frowned when she saw me. How did you let yourself get like this? It is Molly's day. You're embarrassing us. Embarrassing. If I'd had any money, I wouldn't have walked the whole way. I didn't bother explaining. They'd never actually looked at me anyway. Dylan found a server's uniform somewhere and threw it at me. Put this on. Don't sit at the main tables. Find a corner in the back and stay there. Don't get in the way of Molly's party. The party started, and every guest lined up to tell Mom what a daughter she'd raised. Then a commotion broke out near the entrance. People started whispering. Isn't that the admissions director from North Star Institute of Technology? That is her. And the man beside her is from Eastboro. That Sutton girl must be something. Pacific Harbor sent someone all the way from Caldon. Molly listened to all of it, glowing, and looked over at our family. I told you, I did incredibly well. I really might be the top scorer in the country. Colin's parents had Molly's hands in theirs, already in love with her. Our Molly's really something. Once you pick North Star or Eastboro, Colin will have company. They'd said those exact words to me once. The directors from North Star, Eastboro, and Pacific Harbor pushed through the crowd toward Molly. Audrey Sutton, choose our school. We'll give you everything we have. At the sound of my name, Mom and the others exchanged a stunned look. You've made a mistake. Molly's the top scorer in the country. Dylan jumped in behind her. You've definitely got the wrong student. Audrey didn't even finish the exam. Why would you want her? Pull the scores, check them right here, and you'll see Molly came out first. Wouldn't that be cruel to her though? She barely tested, and once the numbers come up, mine will be so much higher. She'll be crushed. Molly glanced at me while she said it, wearing her concern like a costume. Mom saw nothing cruel in it at all. It is fine. Your sister's tougher than she looks. We'll check right here in front of everyone, so they can all see how remarkable you are. I'd gone numb a long time ago. I'd lost count of how many times they'd made an example of me. It started the day they launched their campaign to make Audrey worse. They reset my alarm. They left me on the side of the road. They found a way to interfere with every test I sat, and every time, they laughed about it while they soothed Molly. See? Your sister didn't do as well as you this time. Molly's the smart one in this family. The second your mood improves, you leave Audrey in the dust. It never once occurred to them to ask whether any of it hurt. Tonight was no different. They were going to execute me in public for Molly's entertainment. Dylan didn't hesitate. He waved down a hotel employee. Get me a laptop. We'll start with Audrey's score. He typed in my exam ID. One number came up on the screen. 0. The room broke into jeering. Nobody scores an actual 0. That takes effort. I heard their older girl used to be brilliant. What happened? Did she fall in with the wrong crowd? Somebody said they saw her working at a karaoke bar. You don't think. Not one person in my family said a word for me. You see, I told you there'd been a mistake. Look at that score. There is no possible way you came here for her. Look at Molly. She is the one you want. They pushed Molly out in front of the university reps. Colin stepped up, pleased with himself. Go on, pull Molly's up. Give the room something to talk about. Dylan smiled, entered Molly's exam ID, and waited. Every guest held their breath while the portal refreshed. The number came up huge on the screen. 0.
The number came up huge on the screen. 0. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Molly laughed. It was a tiny, confused sound, like she was waiting for someone to tell her this was some kind of joke. Dylan stared at the screen. Colin leaned forward. Mom whispered, there must be a mistake. The admissions director from North Star stepped toward the laptop. Run the verification again. Dylan did. 0. Eastboro's representative pulled out his own tablet. Use the candidate identification number. Dylan entered it. 0. Pacific Harbor's representative frowned. That's impossible. Molly's face drained of color. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't understand. Mom immediately wrapped an arm around her. It's okay, sweetheart. They made a mistake. The North Star director turned toward me. Audrey, come here. Every head in the room turned. I didn't move. She raised her voice. Audrey Sutton. I slowly walked forward. Molly watched me. Her expression had changed. For the first time all evening, she wasn't looking at me like I was the sister who existed to make her feel better. She looked afraid. The director handed me the laptop. Enter your identification number yourself. I did. The screen refreshed. A different number appeared. 100.00. Someone gasped. Then another number appeared beneath it. National rank 1. The room exploded. What? No way. She got 100? Then why was the first score 0? The East Borough representative snatched the laptop. Run the encrypted record. A second verification appeared. Then a third. All three showed the same result. Audrey Sutton, 100.00, rank number 1. Mom's mouth fell open. Dylan looked like he'd been slapped. Colin simply stared at me. Molly took one step backward. No. The word came out so softly that almost nobody heard it. Then she shook her head harder. No, that's not possible. The North Star director looked at her. You're Molly Sutton? Molly nodded. You received a 0. I didn't. Her voice cracked. I studied. I answered everything. The director glanced at me. And Audrey. I smiled faintly. I answered everything too. Dylan suddenly grabbed the laptop. That's impossible. She left after 10 minutes. Yes, I said. And she didn't return. I didn't. Colin's face twisted. Then how did you get a perfect score? I looked directly at him. Because I took the assessment before I walked out. Nobody spoke. Mom's eyes widened. You finished it? No. I let the answer hang. I finished it before I left. The North Star director's expression sharpened. Audrey, explain. I looked around the room. At the expensive decorations. At Molly's diamond necklace. At the antique tiara. At the people who had spent years telling me that my intelligence was dangerous because it hurt Molly's feelings. Then I looked at the family who had deliberately dismantled my future. You all thought I was taking the exam that morning. I pointed toward Molly. I wasn't. Molly's face went white. I continued. 3 weeks ago, I registered for the assessment under an independent testing accommodation. I completed the entire examination under supervision at the district testing center. Dylan's lips parted. You what? I knew you'd interfere. Mom staggered backward. You knew. I knew you'd find a way to make me fail. I laughed once. You were remarkably predictable. Colin stared at me. But the hotel assessment wasn't my real assessment. The room went silent. The North Star director slowly nodded. So the examination today was a decoy? Exactly. I turned toward Molly. You were given the same candidate number I normally use. Her eyes widened. That water. I smiled. Wasn't drugged. Dylan looked at me sharply. What? The bottle you handed me contained an emetic. Everyone froze. I switched it before I drank it. Mom's face collapsed. You knew we were trying to make you sick? I knew someone would. I touched the faint bruise still visible near my hairline. You've been trying to make me worse for months. Why would I suddenly trust a bottle of water from this family? Molly's breathing became ragged. You're lying. The North Star director shook his head. No, she's not. He turned his tablet around. The district center has time-stamped biometric verification, camera footage, and her completed answer file. He looked at Molly. Your sister's examination was submitted 3 weeks ago. Molly's knees buckled. Mom caught her. Sweetheart. Molly clung to her. But you said Audrey was failing. Mom stared at her. Molly's voice rose. You said she was getting worse. Nobody answered. She looked at Dylan. You said her grades were falling. Dylan swallowed. You weren't supposed to. He stopped. Too late. Every person nearby heard him. The North Star director's expression changed. Supposed to what? Dylan went pale. Colin stepped in. She means nothing. We're a family. We were helping Molly. By sabotaging Audrey? Nobody answered. I laughed. Don't worry. Tell them. I stepped closer. Tell them how Mom changed my alarm. Mom's face crumpled. Tell them how Dylan sabotaged my car ride. Dylan looked away. Tell them how Colin told me to bomb my exams. Colin's jaw tightened. Tell them how you took my money and spent it keeping Molly happy. Dylan said nothing. Tell them how you all locked me in my room and forced me to study after you thought you'd destroyed my future. Mom whispered, Audrey, stop. No. My voice cut through the ballroom. You wanted me worse. I looked at each of them. So I became worse. A bitter smile crossed my face. Just not at school. The admissions representatives exchanged looks. North Star's director stepped toward me. Audrey, we would like to offer you immediate admission. East Borough's representative raised his hand. We'll match it. Pacific Harbor's representative laughed. We'll exceed it. The room erupted again. Mom stared at me. Audrey. I turned toward her. She looked terrified. Not because I'd failed. Because I hadn't. You're coming home with us, she whispered. I shook my head. No. But you're my daughter. I looked at the St. Jude medal around Molly's neck. She had put it on without even realizing what it was. No, I said quietly. I was your daughter when you chose to destroy me. Mom began crying. I thought I was saving your sister. You were. I nodded toward Molly. You saved her from feeling inferior. Then I looked at the wreckage surrounding them. And you destroyed the person who never made her feel inferior in the first place. Molly suddenly screamed. It's because of you. Everyone turned. She shoved away from Mom. You knew I couldn't compete with her. Her eyes locked onto mine. You knew. I stared at her. You're right. Molly froze. I knew. Her mouth trembled. And I knew you would never stop. I stepped closer. So I stopped playing. Molly's eyes filled with tears. You ruined me. No. I shook my head. You did that yourself. The admissions director held out his hand. Audrey, there's one more thing. He handed me a folder. Inside was a scholarship agreement. full tuition, housing, research funding, and a place in North Star's accelerated program. I looked at it. Then I looked back at my family. For years, they had told me my future was something I needed to sacrifice for Molly. Now Molly's future was collapsing because mine had survived. I signed the acceptance form. My hand didn't shake once. Behind me, Molly started crying again. This time, nobody asked me to make it better. And for once, I didn't. The fallout happened faster than anyone expected. North Star released the verified rankings that night. Audrey Sutton, #1 in the country. Molly's score was 0. By morning, the school had opened an investigation into the testing interference. The hotel footage, altered records, witness statements, and messages between my family members were enough. Mom, Dylan, and Colin couldn't explain themselves. Especially after Dylan's banking records showed he'd been taking money intended for me and spending it on Molly. Then the investigators found the messages. Make sure Audrey fails. Don't let her test higher than Molly. She can afford to lose a year. The phrase that destroyed them was the simplest. If Audrey gets ahead, Molly will hurt herself. The family had built their entire defense around Molly's illness. Unfortunately for them, the evidence showed they'd turned that illness into an excuse to systematically sabotage me. Molly was sent into treatment. She begged me to visit. I didn't. She wrote me letters. I returned them unopened. Mom called every night. I blocked her. Dylan tried to apologize. I told him the $120,000 he had wasted keeping Molly happy could go toward the therapy he'd suddenly decided everyone needed. Colin waited outside my new dorm on move-in day. You're really leaving? I looked at him. You told me to take a gap year. He swallowed. I didn't mean forever. You should have been more specific. Then I walked inside. 6 months later, North Star announced that I'd won their National Research Scholarship. My name appeared on the same website where my family had once expected to see Molly's. That evening, I received one final message from Mom. Your sister is getting better. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. I didn't hate Molly. That would have meant she still owned something inside me. I simply stopped participating in the life where everyone else's happiness required my destruction. At graduation, I stood beneath the North Star crest with the brass fountain pen Dylan had once given me. I hadn't thrown it away. I had engraved something underneath it. Mine now. The St. Jude medal was gone. The North Star pin was gone. The people who gave them to me were gone too. But my future remained. And when my name was called as valedictorian, I walked onto that stage without looking back. Some families teach their children how to succeed. Mine taught me something more useful. How to survive people who wanted me to fail. And once I learned that lesson, there was nothing left they could take from me.